Hey friends, this is Sean Washburn from YourExcelTutor.com, and you're watching 30 Tips in 30 Days. And today on day 13, we're going to be talking about protecting sheets. And this is one that I was asked about with the previous one when we talked about sheet tabs. And protecting sheets, if you've never done it, is another area, another function or tool that can be really helpful depending on your application. So I'm not going to go through a total extensive thing today, but we are going to show you some examples of where this could be used. So by default, kind of like with when we talked about data validation, by default, every cell, if you go into a cell here and you right click and you go to Format Cells, there's a tab called Protection. It's kind of tucked in the end there. You may not even notice it. By default, every tab is locked and not hidden. But you never see that because it's not activated until you protect the sheet. So if we right click on the tab and go, this is protect sheet, we're not going to do it yet. But when you protect the sheet, that's where that happens. So if we protected it right now, I wouldn't be able to do anything with this stuff on here. And I'll talk a little about that. So let's say we have this entry form for spare parts orders, and we got a customer, we got a part number, we got quantity, price per part, and the total price. That's got a little formula. And then let's say I just made up a formula here, but let's say we have this super secret formula, and right now we can see it. This is pretty random, square root of 234, but we can see it. But let's say for our example, we want someone to be able to put in all the stuff in white and have it calculate the yellow, but not show them what the yellow formula is. So they can see the value, but for some reason we want to hide it. The first thing we'll do, and actually the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to, we haven't talked about this yet, but we're going to go to View, and you may not notice, but you can click grid lines. So you can actually turn these grid lines off, like we're going to do here, because we're going to limit where you can go to just this area. So we don't need the grid lines; they're just kind of in the way at this point. So what we're going to do is everything, like I said, is by default is locked. So we're going to go through here. We're going to unlock these cells because we want to be able to enter text into them. So we'll go to right click, go to Format Cells, and we're already in protection here. We're going to click that. So now these are unlocked. When we go to protect, we'll hit OK. And what we're going to do here with this guy is we're going to keep it locked. So right click, Format Cells. We're going to keep it locked. We're also going to hide it. And what it'll do, it won't hide the actual cell. I'll be able to see the value, but it will hide the formula. So it's a way to kind of put stuff sort of behind the curtain so no one sees it. So I'm going to say hidden. And notice none of this does anything until we protect the cell. So we're going to right click. We're going to hit protect cell. So here's where it gets a little tricky. You don't want to. One thing is, you can put a password on there, but just like everything, be careful and write the password down, because once you put it in there, there's no way to get it back out. So I've done this before and locked worksheets and tabs and forgot what my own password was. So I generally don't do that. So I just usually leave it blank. And so what you can see down here, you've got some options, and these are the defaults. Is that when you protect this, it's going to let you actually click on the locked cells and the unlocked cells, and then you'll see everything else is not checked. So I won't be able to format columns or insert columns or rows. It basically is going to lock down the whole thing, auto filter, all this stuff. So in this case, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But I'm going to make this a little easier to use, and I'm going to uncheck the locked cells. So what that'll mean is when I come in here, and this actually comes into play more. Oh, let's hit OK. This comes into play more when you might have an entry like dashboard and you have cells all over the place. This is really nice for that, because what it'll let you do is I can just hit tab, and it'll only select the cells that are unlocked. So I can't even click on these. It won't even let me go in there, which we talked about. We hid this cell. I can't click on it anyway. So if you're going to have it locked and not be able to let people click on locked cells, it doesn't matter. Let's show you just what that would look like though. So if we unprotect, and we're going to protect again, this time I'm going to leave this checked so we can click on here. I'll show you. So now I can actually click on these, but if I try to like delete, it's not going to let me do anything. It's protected. And if we click on this cell, I see the number, but the formula is gone. So that's what I talked about, kind of putting it behind the curtain. You're sort of locking it out. And this could be useful if you're, let's say you're going to send a file to a customer or whatever, and you want to give them a tool to use. You can do it this way and lock them out. In that case, you would want to use a password because you don't want them to just be able to, they could unlock it if they want. So let's do this again. We're going to unprotect. We're going to protect, and this time I'm going to uncheck that again. So what I like about it is I can't click anywhere here, but when I tab, it just keeps me in the cells that I need. It makes it really easy to put stuff in. I can change this to 3. Everything updates with my formulas and all that stuff, and then when I'm done, I click. I could have something to export this or whatever. So that's the gist of it. Now I can't come up here. I can't change any of this. I can't even format these cells. If you look up here, all the stuff is grayed out. So it's pretty much locked down. But you can choose what you want. You have to think through it, and sometimes it's trial and error to figure out what do I want to protect, what do I not want to protect. So try one of these like that with a file and just kind of play around, figure out what things you are going to need or not. And a lot of times you'll have it locked down. You go to try to do something and it won't let you do it, and that's when you find out, oh, I should have included that. And every once in a while there are some things where, especially when you get into using macros and stuff, where you can do something with a macro. Sometimes I'll have a macro actually unprotect a sheet, do some stuff, and then protect the sheet because it's quicker that way, and it leaves all the functionality for the user. So one other thing here, so if we go to like this readouts tab, and if you look in here, so we'll protect this, and one of the things you saw was use auto filter. So you just need to get to know what's in this list. So in this case, if that's not checked and I hit OK, it doesn't let me use any of the stuff that I already had in there. And these are all, I think if I delete these, it's not going to let me do it. But I can then add that in. I can come in and say, all right, I want to use the auto filter, especially if you got pivot tables and things like that. You want to be able to have access to those. And let's say I'll let people insert columns. So now I can come in here, I can use this, that's still good, and if I want to, I can insert a column. But even when I click on this, right click on this column, you can see a lot of this stuff is grayed out because I didn't leave the user the ability to do that. So again, protecting sheets, really powerful. Just be careful if you're gonna protect, only use a password if you are gonna write it down and know you can get to it. Otherwise, it's like throwing away a key and not being able to get it again. So, but when you use it, especially for a form like this, really helpful to be able to just lock everything else out, only be able to get to the cells that you really want people to put stuff in. It just makes it a lot cleaner and more efficient to use. So play around with that. Hopefully it's helpful, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another tip.